words, and on the count of three, we have to say Harippa. So on the count of three, so 1, 2, 3. Harippa.
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 What's up, everybody? Hope you are well and things are going good. So, Team Hustlers is back again with amazing podcast session filled with joy and knowledge.
There is no end to education. It is not that you read a book, pass an examination. No. Finish with the education. The whole of life, from the moment you are born to the moment you die, is the process of learning. As we all know, learning from experience is the best way to grow, gain, and achieve the goals of a life.
So today Team Hustlers is presenting an amazing personality who loves to share his experience about Kubernetes, open source and a lot more. Yes, we are talking about Bill Mulligan from Germany, who is the Ambassador and Marketing Manager of CNCF.
So, stay tuned to us and let's start the session.
Hey Bill, welcome to the Hustlers.
How's it going?
Okay, you are amazing now. So as we all know, collaboration is the best way to get together and learn something innovative, helped us to grow and gain something knowledge. So in context to that, what is CNCF? What is the motive behind the organization?
Yeah, so the motive behind the organization is to help cloud computing become ubiquitous. And the way that we do that is we build and grow the community around cloud native technologies. And the way that we do that is help encourage more contributors to come into the community, find ways to support projects with their needs and take away some of the administrative work that they need, provide the services that they need to really help them focus on the community and making the project successful. And in addition to that, we also bring in, I think, the really important like end user perspective into cloud native technologies. So these are the day-to-day companies that you think of, like MasterCard or Visa or different airlines that are all using these in production. And we help bring their perspective into the ecosystem to make the cloud native community better as a whole.
Yeah, that's great thing. Means learning in a group or organization help us to grow more and more. It's a nice thing to work in an organization or being a part of it. So, Bill, I am searching a little bit and I came to know about you as you are the marketing manager and ambassador of CNCF. So, can you elaborate to us or our viewers about your role and your contribution in CNCF?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said before, what we do is we help build and grow communities, and that's specifically what I do at CNCF. So that actually covers a lot of different areas, and I'm usually jumping across a whole bunch of different projects across the day, interacting with people from all around the world, and I think it's really fun for me to do. And so there's multiple different programs that I help manage that kind of help people grow and learn within the cloud native ecosystem. So for instance, one of them is the Kubernetes Community Day program. So actually just before this, I was calling with some folks in Brazil that are helped creating one there. And what these are localized conferences that bring together the cloud native community to talk about the future of cloud native technologies in their local areas. And we currently have about 15 or 20 of them all around the globe in providing content and learning and experiences and ways to get started to people from people within their community. We had one earlier this year in Bangalore, another one in Africa, and a whole bunch more exciting ones coming up later this year. Yeah, another program that I help manage is Cloud Native TV, which is our new live stream program, which is creating a more interactive, engaging media experience for people to learn about and grow within the cloud native community. And so in this way, it provides people new opportunities to engage with the community. And I think bringing out more of the personalities of the people and being able to interact in the live experience is, I think, a really fun way to do that. Yeah, and there's a couple other programs that I run, including stuff around students, stuff around some of our strategic initiatives around areas of growth we see, like telecommunications and 5G. But maybe that's a brief start.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I think I have to give chance to other, as our title says team hustlers, as working in a team. So my friend Ananya have some amazing stuff with her. So Ananya, ball is in your court.
Thank you, Vin. So, hello, Bill. How are you doing?
Good. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm also good. First of all, welcome to the Hustlers. Thank you very much for being with us. So, my question is for you is, as we all know, there is a Kubecon North America happen in the October. Tell us what is Kubecon and the benefits to attending the Kubecon conference.
Yeah, absolutely. So KubeCon, I think, is the gathering place of the cloud native community. And it really has seen an explosive growth. It was founded back in, I think, 2005, and now 6 years later, it's become the largest open source conference in the world. Our last one, which was virtual for North America, had 26,000 attendees. And the reason why these people are coming to KubeCon is because they want to learn about the cloud native ecosystem, whether it's someone new that's just getting involved and trying to understand how they can contribute to a cloud native project, whether that be through code or non-code contributions, whether it's someone who's like halfway through the career and looking to upskill or transfer into a new area of technology. They want to come to learn about what is cloud native technologies and how can I start implementing them, or which ones would be useful for me in my company? What are the problems that other companies are solving with cloud native technologies, and how can I bring that knowledge and that experience back into my company? And then it's also project maintainers talking about the latest and greatest features coming out of their projects. So there's a lot of intro sessions and deep dive sessions for each of our projects, talking about like, hey, this is how the project has developed. These are new features. This is the new functionalities that you can have, and how you can start implementing this project today. So connecting the project maintainers with users and getting them to mix and collaborate. And then it's also talking about like really like the bleeding edge of what's coming next in cloud native. People go there because they want to see KubeCon is where people announce what they're going to be doing in the cloud native industry. You know, there's a lot of acquisitions, there's new projects being announced, there's new collaborations and new partnerships. And that's another great place to catch all the latest and greatest news is KubeCon. And I think the last thing, and really the most important thing, is we all kind of like work in a remote and distributed environment. We have contributors from 178 countries, 130,000 people all around the world, and not all of them are in the same town. And KubeCon really gives all those people a chance to come together and chat and collaborate and actually interact and engage with one another one-on-one for sometimes the first time. I know people that have been working together for years, and the first time they actually met each other was at KubeCon. And I'm really excited for going to KubeCon in LA because it'll be a mix of virtual and in person. And I've actually never met anyone on my team in person yet. And KubeCon will be the first time I do that. And I think a lot of other people around the community might be able to say that too. And obviously the virtual component is awesome too. So lots of great reasons to go to KubeCon.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, can I ask some more questions, but they are not related to the CNCF and KubeCon stuff?
Sure.
Okay. What is your hobbies?
My hobbies? I have a lot of different hobbies. Most of them involve being outside and doing sports. Probably my favorite one is biking. I actually just did a 2-week bike trip across Germany. Also really like running. I'm a captain for the global running crew, Midnight Runners. I like sailing, I like swimming, I like skiing. If you're not finding me in front of my laptop, I'm probably going to be outside doing something active.
Oh, that's great. Lots of hobbies. So next question is for you is, what is a funny moment you have ever done in your college, and you think every student do that moment for the enjoyment?
Oh man, I have I think there's like too many stories. Also, who's going to be watching this? One of the funniest stories. So I went to grad school in Oxford. And one of the things that they have there is these, what they call balls. And so it's like a whole night of food, drinks, and entertainment, super dressed up, either like black tie or white tie. And I had like no clue what a ball was. Like I was like born and raised in like a farm town, like very small, like different world. But somehow I came to be the ball chair at my college. And so I organized like a 250 person ball, like in a college in Oxford. It was Harry Potter themed, and there was like ice sculptures and like different like themed foods and stuff. And everybody's like dressed up in their tuxedos. And then it ended up with us like at 4 a.m., like all around a piano, like singing karaoke while somebody like played the piano. And then I woke up the next morning and there was like people just like littered all over the college, just passed out because they were too tired to make it home. So that was probably one of the best parties I've ever thrown or ever will throw.
So my friend
I think
Deepak
that's an
wants to
amazing
ask some
experience.
questions. So Deepak, over to you.
Okay, so like I'm meeting you for the first time. It's a great experience to meet you. Like my question to you is, you are a CNCF ambassador. So if we talk about students, if we are pursuing any career or doing any interest related topic, they find advantages and perks in that. So if we talk about open source, we know that the students or people doing open source contribution, they are not actually paid for that. Basically, as if we compare it with internships and full-time jobs, the open source contributors are not paid. So like, apart from the pay, what are the things, what are the advantages, what are the perks to the open source contributors can get so that they are motivated in to go in the open source world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess before I dive into that question, I just want to kind of like first address the like question as a whole. And yeah, I guess you were saying that open source contributors don't get paid. And actually in a recent survey done by the Linux Foundation about contributors to open source, it was something like 80 or 90% of people that are contributing to open source projects are actually doing it because they're paid to do it through their job. And so I think we're really seeing a growth of companies realizing the potential and the power of open source and allowing employees to contribute to open source projects on company time because it is having a positive impact on the business too. So that's kind of like, but that's like once you're employed. So for students though, when you're not being employed, like why should I like give up my free time when instead I could be, you know, having fun at a ball or, you know, going out and hanging with my friends. So why would you want to contribute to open source? And I would say, the best thing about it is an awesome career accelerator in a couple different ways. One is you're gaining real world experience and you can see your code going into like production in real companies. Open source projects, like for instance, Kubernetes is used by thousands of corporations all around the world. And so you actually contribute to something that's going into production today. And I don't think probably most students have experience or can speak to that. The second part is open source projects are always looking for new contributors. And when new contributors come along, they're being encouraged and helped along. It's almost like you have a mentorship process along the way. In a lot of open source projects, or at least the larger or more developed one, there'll be kind of like contributor ladders. There'll be ways for you to get involved. There will be mentorship programs too. And so you can gain experience. You can have mentorship through working in open source projects. And you can start to up-level your skills as a coder or somebody else who works around technologies too. And open source can provide that to you. And the last thing is it starts to provide you like a portfolio of work that you can show to people, you know, as recruiters or companies are coming along and saying, can you show me some of what you've done? You can point them directly and say, hey, I've done this for this project. I've implemented this feature. I know how to get something from the initial issue all the way into emerged fix, emerged feature. I know what a development workflow looks like, and you can talk to all those points as you're going through interviews. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of benefits for working in open source. And I guess maybe the last one that has like impacted me the most is you could have awesome networking. You know, you're working with companies all around the world. It's actually how I've gotten a couple different jobs, is through the people that I've met through working in open source. You know, there's companies like Google, like Microsoft, like Airbnb, like Uber, like Lyft, like Spotify that are working on these projects, and you're getting to interact with engineers there. There's actually so many stories in the cloud native community of people who started contributing to CNCF projects and then later got hired at a company because of that too. So it can get you a job too. And if you do want to get paid, mentored, and potentially have a job offer, I would strongly encourage you to check out the CNCF mentorship programs. And we offer these every single quarter as we pay students or other professionals to contribute to projects for a quarter, so for 3 months, and they get mentorship, they get money, and maybe they might even have a job after too. So consider checking that out.
Okay, Bill. So like you talked about networking in open source, like we can build our network in open source. Like, what is the best way to find the connections for open source? Like you also talked about the mentors. We know that we can get good connections, we can establish a good network, we can get good mentors from open source. Like, what is the procedure? How can we find them? How can we get to them? Like, if we talk about mentors, how do we find them? Like, students are working on different technologies on open source. So what is the best way to find the mentor who can teach them or help them in the open source contributions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say like this applies not only to mentorship in open source, but also like mentorship and networking anywhere. Like you shouldn't be, the first question shouldn't be like, how can I get value? It should be, how can I provide value? And so as you're going into these projects, I think if you start contributing and providing value, people will start coming to you to help you out. And that's what I've always found. If you're just going in with ask, like, how can you help me? How can you mentor me? How can you do this? It's going to be a lot harder for you to do that. But if you can come in and say, hey, like this issue has like a good first issue label. Here's my attempt to solve it, or here's me like contributing to this event or writing up like this blog post, and here's my contribution, here's how I'm providing value to you, here's how I'm providing value to the community, then people will be like, hey, thank you for helping out, and they'll start interacting, engaging, and mentoring with you. So I would say the first thing to do is like, how are you providing value to the other person, to the community? Look to do that first, and then the opportunities, the mentorship will come naturally and easily after that.
Okay, like one more question. You are the CNCF ambassador. I think you must be in open source for a long time. Can you share your open source journey, like how you started open source, like why you choose open source to be your domain?
Yeah, I think this is a funny story. This is not actually something that I chose or really had an idea that I was going to get into at all. Like I actually did my undergraduate degree in biochemistry. I don't have like any tech background. It's, you could say, almost something I just fell into. And so after I graduated, I got a job at a startup that was doing a machine learning platform on Kubernetes. That I actually, in my first tech job, I didn't work in open source at all. I like hardly even like knew what it was. And then as I got to my second job, I was interacting a little bit more with the community through it. And actually my first contribution to open source was literally, I was looking up information for a blog post that I was writing. And I realized that one of the links in the documentation, in the Kubernetes documentation, was broken. And I proposed a fix to a link. So literally changing just one line. And that was my first contribution to open source. But, you know, it doesn't have to start with like some massive, like, oh, I merged a massive feature in. It's literally, oh, I fixed this link so that the documentation is better for the next person that comes along. And from there, I tried like going to a couple different like Kubernetes SIG or special interest group meetings. And I went to quite a few, and like none of them really felt like they were a good fit for me. And you know, that's okay too. You can try out different things in the open source community, and not all of them are going to work out. You know, it's a great thing. CNCF has over 100 different projects, and each of those different sub-projects, subcommittees, special interest groups and stuff. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. You don't have to find the perfect one on your first shot and say like, this is what I'm doing. I tried different things, you know, some of them didn't work out. And then I actually found like the first project I really started being like actively involved in and contributing to was actually in the Linux Foundation networking. It's not even in CNCF at all. And I started to be involved there because I went to a conference. I learned about one of the projects that they were working on, and I went home and I read through all of it and did a pull request that just kind of went through, did spelling and grammar, like fixed a bunch of links and added just a little bit of content. So what I was talking about before, you know, providing value to the community. And because I went through and did that, they asked me, hey, do you want to lead like this new part of the project that we're spinning up, right? And so I was like, okay, yeah, that'd be great. And then my experience there helped me get my job at CNCF. And so if you kind of like look at my, like, let's say open source journey as a whole, like the first thing, I fixed one link. It was a one-line change. And then I tried looking at different groups, didn't find one that worked out until I finally like did. And then I started providing value to the community. They asked me to take on a larger role. And then that's how I got my job at CNCF. So I would say start small, provide value to the community and grow from there. And the rest will take care of itself naturally.
Exactly, like to all viewers who are watching, as Bill said, he's from the biochemistry background and in the open source, and he's the CNCF ambassador now. So like anybody can do open source. It doesn't require to be from the tech background, I guess. So one question is like, is there anything you think that this need to be improved in the open source world or open source community? Any suggestions you would provide for any student choosing an organization to contribute or any open source community he's taking part in? So like, I think you're getting what I'm saying.
Yeah,
okay,
I think, I think like always like the hardest part, I think, is always getting started and getting off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times in open source, there's kind of like a core like community that have been around for a long time and know a lot of things about the project. And the problem is like once you're like too far into anything, it's hard to see what's hard or what's like interesting for newcomers to either the project or the community. And so, you know, because you're like, oh, of course it's obvious because I've done this so much, but it's not obvious to someone new that's coming in. And so I think the biggest thing for open source projects is getting that on-ramp like very easy for new people that want to try out a project or can become contributors. I think one of the like really good like a couple different examples of that is like why did Kubernetes become more successful than Cloud Foundry? And some people argue that it's because, you know, a developer could fit like Minikube on their laptop and try it out in a local environment, whereas Cloud Foundry was too big to be able to do that. And because it was easier to experiment and play and work with Kubernetes, more people could do it faster, and that created a positive feedback cycle that ultimately pushed the project forward faster, a lot bigger than Cloud Foundry. Another example is Linkerd, which is a recently graduated CNCF project. Their time from their goal to get the time from when you first open the getting started guide to when you actually have Linkerd installed and can start doing things with it is less than 5 minutes. And so getting that feedback loop really fast, I think is important, because people like to see when things work and when they get to actually, you know, try out and test out what they're coming for. And I think that's one of the things a lot of open source projects miss is what is that onboarding experience like? And what is it like for you?
Okay, so like Ananya has some more questions for you. Ananya, over to you.
Yeah,
You're
sure.
on mute.
So, as the CNCF is an organization, there are lots of communities under CNCF. So, any newbie wants to contribute in CNCF, how they choose their community for the contribution?
Yeah, I'd say that's like going back to like my previous answer is there are so many communities and you don't have to find the one that you like on the first chance. I would say, or the first try, I would say go and try out a couple different ones, show up to a couple different meetings, try out a couple different projects and see what's most interesting to you. And that's what I did too. And I think that's what a lot of people find is, you know, they kind of go between, and you don't have to be like, this is okay, I pick out the one I'm doing at the beginning and this is the one I have to stick to for the next 5 years. No. I think a lot of people see it as something that's much more fluid than that, as you can try out a couple different things. You can try out something for, I don't know, like 2, 3, 4 months and then move to a different thing. And so you don't have to be like completely tied to one until you find one that really fits with what you're doing. Like I said before, I was working in Linux Foundation networking project, and now I'm at CNCF. You know, I'm a completely different organization now, but now I'm really into the CNCF ecosystem. So I would strongly encourage you to try out a couple different projects. If you're a coder, you know, try getting a couple project up and running. What is most interesting for you? If you're non-coder, like thinking about like what's most exciting for you to talk about, what's most exciting for you to speak about, or check out the non-code projects like the Cloud Native Glossary or the Kubernetes or the Cartographos working group. You know, there's multiple different ways to get involved. It just depends on what your interests are. And if you're an event organizer, come out the Kubernetes, check out the Kubernetes community days with me.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think most of the viewers that are remaining till now got some amazing stuffs about the CNC, about the Kubernetes, and about the open source. So, well, one thing is that do you want to suggest some tips or tricks that the viewers that are watching us, or that the viewers that are coming into the college life, some tips and tricks to them so that they can start their career in open source?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first one is come to KubeCon. This is, we have free tickets for any students that want to come. I think there you'll be able to see lots of different things across the cloud native ecosystem and maybe be inspired by one or two things and want to dive deeper into them. Like I said before, like a big part of my open source journey was going to a conference and, you know, seeing a talk about a project and going home and starting to get involved in that project. So I think it's great. If you can't attend KubeCon or don't have time, like there's all of our previous talks on YouTube, and I encourage you to poke around, like look at different ones that you want, check out different videos, see what resonates with you, what's interesting to you, what makes sense to you, and what doesn't make sense to you. You know, there's so much great content online to be able to learn about different things. Like I said before, I don't have any tech background. I learned everything that I know now through YouTube, through blog posts, through listening to podcasts. So you don't need to have an amazing tech background to start getting involved in the community. But the biggest thing that you need is openness and a willingness to learn. So try out things, test out things, and then figure out what you like for now, and then start getting involved in that. Yeah, and I think like open source is exciting because anybody can show up, anybody can contribute, and there's always a space for you.
Okay, Bill. So like at the last, one question off topic, like Gaurav sir introduced us with you. So I want to ask, like, what is your experience with Indians as you are interacting with Indians, like you interacted with Gaurav sir? So like, what is your experience with us, like interacting with Indian people?
Yeah, I would say like the biggest thing is they bring like a lot of energy and excitement to the table. I think everybody that I've gone and been able to talk to, like they're always like super exciting, like pushing the edge. And you know, there's I think a lot of great energy coming out of the Indian community. Also, one of my old coworkers, Nikita, is on the Kubernetes steering committee, and I've always thought it's been awesome, like looking at her journey, going from a CNCF mentee all the way up to the Kubernetes steering committee and working across Red Hat and VMware and multiple like large companies. So being able, there are pathways for you like to get involved. And I think it's great to see a lot of people in the Indian community, you know, really having that drive and getting involved in the community and like pushing it forwards. So I think that's cool. I also like Kunal. He's like, you know, driving a lot of exciting things in the student community and like a lot of like internships there. Like I really see this energy and this passion coming out of the Indian community, and I actually really want to visit because like I feel like I know so many different people there, and I just want to see what it's really like for myself, and hopefully bring back some of that energy too.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
amazing.
that's great.
Amazing. So before wrapping up the sessions, we are doing some creative stuffs, some funny moments, and we are, so in today's session, we are teaching you some Hindi words, and on the count of 3, we have to say Harippa. So on the count of 3, so 1, 2, 3, Harippa.
Haripap.
Harippa.
Okay, so at last, all the viewers, you all get the details of the CNCF community. Links are present in the description. So please go and check it out in the description below. And the open source communications, you can check out the LinkedIn profile, which is also present in the description. And coming towards the end, keep hustling, keep learning. Bye.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to